It's day 64 of our Bible reading plan, and today we're reading Exodus chapter 34, Job chapter 28, Mark chapter 5, verse 1 to verse 20, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2 to verse 16, and Psalms chapter 64. We're reading from the Berean Standard Bible, Exodus 34. Then the Lord said to Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the originals, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. Be ready in the morning and come up on Mount Sinai to present yourself before me on the mountain top. No one may go up with you. In fact, no one may be seen anywhere on the mountain. Not even the flocks or herds may graze in front of the mountain. So Moses chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the originals. He rose early in the morning, and taking the 2 stone tablets in his hands, he went up Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him. And the Lord descended in a cloud, stood with him there, and proclaimed his name, the Lord. Then the Lord passed in front of Moses and called out, the Lord God, is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in loving devotion and faithfulness, maintaining loving devotion to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin. Yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished. He will visit the iniquity of the fathers on their children and grandchildren to the third and fourth generations. Moses immediately bowed down to the ground and worshipped. O Lord, he said, if I have indeed found favor in your sight, my Lord, please go with us, although this is a stiff-necked people. Forgive our iniquity and sin, and take us as your inheritance. And the Lord said, behold, I am making a covenant. Before all your people, I will perform wonders that have never been done in any nation in the world. All the people among whom you live will see the Lord's work, for it is an awesome thing that I am doing with you. Observe what I command you this day. I will drive out before you the Amorites, Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Be careful not to make a treaty with the inhabitants of the land you are entering, lest they become a snare in your midst. Rather, you must tear down their altars, smash their sacred stones, and chop down their Asherah poles. For you must not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, for when they prostitute themselves to their gods and sacrifice to them, they will invite you, and you will eat their sacrifices. And when you take some of their daughters as brides for your sons, their daughters will prostitute themselves to their gods, and cause your sons to do the same. You shall make no molten gods for yourselves. You are to keep the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days at the appointed time in the month of Habib. You are to eat unleavened bread as I commanded you. For in the month of Habib you came out of Egypt. The first offspring of every womb belongs to me, including all the firstborn males among your livestock, whether cattle or sheep. You must redeem the firstborn of a donkey with a lamb, but if you do not redeem it, you are to break its neck. You must redeem all the firstborn of your sons. No one shall appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you shall labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Even in the seasons of plowing and harvesting, you must rest. And you are to celebrate the Feast of Weeks with the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year, all your males are to appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will drive out the nations before you and enlarge your borders, and no one will covet your land when you go up 3 times a year to appear before the Lord your God. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything leavened, and do not let any of the sacrifice from the Passover feast remain until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. The Lord also said to Moses, write down these words, for in accordance with these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. So Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water. He wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. And when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands, he was unaware that his face had become radiant from speaking with the Lord. Aaron and all the Israelites looked at Moses, and behold, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to approach him. But Moses called out to them. So Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses spoke to them. And after this, all the Israelites came near, and Moses commanded them to do everything that the Lord had told him on Mount Sinai. When Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. But whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out, he would tell the Israelites what he had been commanded, and the Israelites would see that the face of Moses was radiant. So Moses would put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with the Lord. Our next reading is Job chapter 28. Surely there is a mine for silver, and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from ore. Man puts an end to the wickedness. He probes the furthest recesses for ore in deepest darkness. Far from human habitation, he cuts a shaft in places forgotten by the foot of man. Far from men, he dangles and sways. Food may come from the earth, but from below it is transformed as by fire. Its rocks are the source of sapphires, containing flecks of gold. No bird of prey knows that path. No falcon's eye has seen it. Proud beasts have never trodden it. No lion has ever prowled over it. The miner strikes the flint. He overturns mountains at their base. He hews out channels in the rocks, and his eyes spot every treasure. He stops up the sources of the streams to bring what is hidden to light. But where can wisdom be found, and where does understanding dwell? No man can know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The ocean depths say, "It is not in me," while the sea declares, "It is not with me." It cannot be bought with gold, nor can its price be weighed out in silver. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Neither gold nor crystal can compare to it, nor jewels of fine gold be exchanged for it. Coral and cords are unworthy of mention. The price of wisdom is beyond rubies. Topaz from Cush cannot compare to it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. From where then does wisdom come, and where does understanding dwell? It is hidden from the eyes of every living thing, and concealed from the birds of the air. Abaddon and death say, "We have heard a rumor about it," but God understands its way, and he knows its place. For he looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens. When God fixed the weight of the wind and measured out the waters, when he set a limit for the rain and a path for the thunderbolt, then he looked at wisdom and appraised it. He established it and set it out. And he said to man, "Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to turn away from evil is understanding." Now we're going to read Mark chapter 5, verse 1 to verse 20. On the other side of the sea, they arrived in the region of the Gerasenes. As soon as Jesus got out of the boat, he was met by a man with an unclean spirit who was coming from the tombs. This man had been living in the tombs and could no longer be restrained even with chains. Though he was often bound with chains and shackles, he had broken the chains and shattered the shackles. Now there was no one with the strength to subdue him. Night and day in the tombs and in the mountains, he kept crying out and cutting himself with stones. When the man saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees before him, and he shouted in a loud voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you before God not to torture me." For Jesus had already declared, Come out of this man, you unclean spirit. What is your name? Jesus asked. My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And he begged Jesus repeatedly not to send them out of that region. There on the nearby hillside, a large herd of pigs was feeding. So the demons begged Jesus, send us to the pigs so that we may enter them. He gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and went into the pigs. And the herd of about 2,000 rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it described what had happened to the demon-possessed man and also to the pigs. And the people began to beg Jesus to leave their region. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by the demons begged to go with him, but Jesus would not allow him. Go home to your own people, he said, and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you. So the man went away and began to proclaim throughout the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. Now we're going to read 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2 to verse 16. Now I commend you for remembering me in everything and for maintaining the traditions just as I pass them on to you. But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, and every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, for it is just as if her head were shaved. If a woman does not cover her head, she should have her hair cut off. And if it is shameful for a woman to have her hair cut or shaved off, she should cover her head. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. For this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head because of the angels. In the Lord, however, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For just as woman came from man, so also man is born of woman. But everything comes from God. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Doesn't nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him, but that if a woman has long hair, it is a glory? For long hair is given to her as a covering. If anyone is inclined to dispute this, we have no other practice, nor do the churches of God. Finally, for today, we're going to read the book of Psalms, chapter 64. Hear, O God, my voice of complaint. Preserve my life from the dread of the enemy. Hide me from the scheming of the wicked, from the mob of workers of iniquity, who sharpen their tongues like swords and aim their bitter words like arrows, ambushing the innocent in seclusion, shooting suddenly without fear. They hold fast to their evil purpose. They speak of hiding their snares. Who will see them? They say. They devise injustice and say, we have perfected a secret plan. For the inner man and the heart are mysterious, but God will shoot them with arrows. Suddenly they will be wounded. They will be made to stumble, their own tongues turned against them. All who see will shake their heads. Then all mankind will fear and proclaim the work of God, so they will ponder what he has done. Let the righteous rejoice in the Lord and take refuge in him. Let all the upright in heart exult. May the Lord bless the reading and hearing of his word.